A UFO was caught on live TV in Brazil, hovering in the sky for over 2 hours. A woman on a Thai talk show in 2016 claimed she was possessed by a ghost, and right in the middle of the interview, the spirit seemed to take over, screaming and freaking out when the host pulled out a Buddha necklace. In Colorado, local news anchors were totally freaked out by a creepy-looking animal caught on camera. This is live TV footage that shows something not human. So what is this thing hovering in the sky? This footage is from a live news broadcast in Rio Branco, Brazil. On February 9th, 2009, TV Gazeta showed up to capture what witnesses described as a colorful object hovering over the city. Whatever this thing was, it changed color multiple times, flashing from blue to red to white. There were more than 25 witnesses that night who watched as this thing hovered in the sky for more than 2 hours. Then it moved from east to south and afterwards south to west. Pretty strange. Certainly doesn't look like a plane or satellite to me, and not that a drone would be totally unheard of in 2009. They certainly weren't as widely used as they are now though. Till this day, we still don't know exactly what this thing was. Alright, this one's pretty ridiculous, but I do love me some possession videos. Always fun to see what weird noises these evil spirits force out of people's mouths. Back in 2016, something pretty strange happened on a Thai talk show. A model came on the show and told everyone that she had picked up a ghost while on vacation in the city of Rayong the year before. She said this ghost was a pop, a type of spirit in Thai culture. It's known for having an uncontrollable hunger. At first, she just calmly explained what had happened to her. You know, ghost got inside my body somehow. Well, and then right in the middle of the interview, the pop just had to embarrass this poor woman on live television. To be fair though, she should have seen this coming. She'd been dealing with the thing's antics for a whole year at this point. Suddenly she seems to switch, like something else is talking through her. She started speaking in a different voice and just couldn't seem to snap out of it. No matter how much the hosts pushed her to stop, they kept telling the spirit to leave her alone, but it refused, making threats like, "Don't mess with me," which probably sounds a lot cooler in Thai. Then one of the hosts pulls out a necklace with a Buddha pendant. As soon as he held it up, she freaks out, screaming and recoiling in terror. Very loudly, I might add. I had to turn down the volume almost all the way because I was worried everyone was going to hear female screams through my headphones and that I'd be kindly asked to leave the office. Eventually, the host puts the necklace on her though, and just like that, she seems to come back to her senses. The clip went viral in Thailand and racked up millions of views. Just what is it we're looking at here? Well, this aired on a local news station in Pueblo, Colorado, and the anchors were genuinely confused, as were a lot of people watching, as to what they were looking at. It's some weird looking animal with patchy black fur, a reddish face, and long skinny arms hunched over eating something off the ground. Apparently the woman who filmed the creature had actually seen it once before, but she had no idea what it was either. Other than an animal with mange, the word chupacabra was thrown around a lot. Well, later on, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials looked into it and said the animal was probably a raccoon with mange. Mange is a skin disease that can cause animals to lose most of their fur and look pretty rough. I mean, you take the cutest furry animal on earth, shave all its hair off, and it looks pretty damn freaky. This image here was shared on news stations all over the world. Nobody knew what the hell this thing was when news first broke, and nobody knows what it is now, but it's since become known as the Unidentified Amarillo object. In 2022, the Amarillo Zoo in Texas got a lot of attention after they shared a strange image caught on their security cameras. The picture was taken at 1:25 a.m. by a motion detecting camera, showing a bizarre figure walking just outside the zoo fence. And what's creepy is that it's walking on 2 legs. Clearly though, this is not a person, unless they're wearing a costume, which is an odd thing to be doing at 1:30 in the morning, skulking around a zoo. When the zoo posted the image on Twitter, they leaned into the mystery, asking, is it a person with a strange hat who likes to walk at night, a chupacabra? Do you have any ideas of what this UAO, Unidentified Amarillo object, could be? The zoo never outright claimed it was anything supernatural or like a cryptid or anything, but they didn't offer up any solid explanations either, because they didn't have one. Now, could this have been a weird marketing stunt? Maybe, but city officials and the zoo's director, Michael Kashiba, insisted the photo was not staged. And 3 years later, we still don't have any solid answers. Isao Machi is this martial artist from Japan who's just on a whole different level with a katana. He practices Raido, an old school samurai art where you draw and strike in one smooth motion, but what sets him apart is how freakishly fast and precise he is. One of the wildest things he can do is slice a BB pellet in half in mid-air. So here, watch this.
I heard it.
So that's a tiny plastic ball fired from an airsoft at crazy speed, and this guy draws his katana from the sheath and cuts it clean through as it's flying at him. That's not just impressive, that is full-on real-life anime stuff. And just to drive it home, most people wouldn't even be able to see a BB pellet flying through the air, let alone react fast enough to hit it with a blade. Incredible. And now for a different kind of movement, straight up flying. This is a rather famous piece of footage that's been circulating online for years. Apparently this was filmed in a forest somewhere in Russia. The camera person's dog seems disturbed by something and runs off ahead. When the cameraman steps into a clearing, we see something completely unexpected. A woman is standing on the ground looking up at a young girl who's just hovering in the air. Soon they realize they're being filmed and they rush off back into the forest. This video falls firmly into that mysterious internet video category. There's not a lot of information about it. It was posted back in 2012 and went viral. There's not a whole lot of information on it. This was filmed at the pedestrian bridge in Kiev, not exactly where you'd expect to see Spider-Man hanging out, but apparently he was. Looks a lot like Spider-Man, to me anyway. I don't know how you guys feel. And there's anything we know about Spider-Man though, it's that he does not move like a normal person. So why is this person crawling along this bridge? It seems pretty risky. The water down there doesn't look deep at all, so if they slipped, it wasn't gonna end well. Unless they've got actual web-slinging powers, a fall from that height could do real damage. So who is this? Some adrenaline junkie? Someone who's just lost it completely? I have no idea. I'm just kind of hoping it really is Spider-Man. This is a weird one. A man completely frozen in place in the middle of the street. Again, no real info on this one. It just is what it is. Weird. And no, we have not paused the clip. This is the footage. What's nuts about this one isn't just that the guy is frozen in place. He's like mid-stride. He looks like an NPC glitching in a video game instead of someone just standing really still. I can't see any movement from this guy. No twitching, like no subtle movement of any kind. It's pretty impressive, honestly. Any thoughts on this one? Share your thoughts down below. And finally, we have this mysterious piece of footage. Look, hospitals are already the last place I want to be. Aside from like waking up buried alive in a coffin or in a burlap sack in the lake, still, hospital's not where I want to be. So seeing this would just make things all the more uncomfortable for me. Probably not as uncomfortable as her, because her back looks like it's about to snap, but I'd be pretty freaked out.
Imagine watching a live news report and suddenly the reporter's words turn into total gibberish. That's exactly what happened during a CBS Los Angeles broadcast from the 2011 Grammy Awards. Viewers were stunned when reporter Serene Branson went from speaking normally to uttering a string of nonsensical sounds on live TV.
Well, a very, very heavy rotation tonight. We had a very Darrison.
She visibly panicked as she realized something was wrong, leading many to fear that she was having a stroke on air. Paramedics rushed to examine her, and thankfully, her vital signs were normal. It turned out Serene had suffered a complex migraine that mimicked stroke-like symptoms, causing sudden aphasia or speech impairment. In other words, her brain glitched, scrambling her speech. The clip went viral as a real-life Matrix moment, a healthy young reporter seemingly malfunctioning without warning. It was a scary sight, but also a relief when we learned it wasn't a true stroke. Still, for a few seconds of live TV, it felt like reality itself had briefly broken down. A famous weatherman suddenly freezes like an NPC caught in lag. On the Today Show in 2012, co-hosts Savannah Guthrie and Matt Lauer finished a silly dance joking about leaving room for the Holy Ghost between dance partners. That's when Al Roker, the beloved NBC weatherman, did the unthinkable. He stared directly into the camera, motionless with a goofy grin for a full 17 seconds. He didn't blink, didn't move a muscle. It was as if someone hit the pause button on Al Roker. Roker later explained that it was a bit of deadpan humor, essentially a brain freeze challenge he did on purpose. The show's director egged him on to see how long he could hold the pose, and Al committed to the bit. Even so, watching it back, many viewers felt a chill. The moment looked so uncanny that it's now a classic glitch in the Matrix clip. During a live soccer match, a shadow person sprinted through the stands, and no one can agree if it was a glitch, a ghost, or just a camera trick. This incident happened at a stadium in La Paz, Bolivia, during a Fox Sports broadcast in 2014. In the footage, you see a dark, human-shaped figure running rapidly across the lower tier seats straight through the crowd, yet no one in the audience seems to react to it. Viewers at home were creeped out. Was it a ghost caught on live TV? Rational explanations soon emerged. Lighting snafu or video artifact, basically a technical glitch that made a real person's image smear across the screen. But that hasn't stopped wild theories. The clip went viral, with some saying the stadium is haunted or that we witnessed a Matrix running program acting up. What's freakier than one person glitching? How about two people glitching together? Twin sisters Paula and Bridget Powers from Australia gave an interview that left viewers' jaws on the floor. They were recounting a dramatic carjacking incident involving their mother, but it wasn't the story that stole the show, it was how they told it. The twins spoke in a mesmerizing stereo, often saying the exact same words at the exact same time during the live interview.
So we drop everything and we went running out the front. We seen Mum running out from the house up there.
At times, one twin would start a sentence and the other would finish it in perfect sync, as if they shared one mind. The effect was so uncanny that the clip went viral worldwide, and even Jimmy Kimmel invited them on his show out of sheer fascination. The sisters themselves just laughed it off, saying their brains think alike at the same time after a lifetime together. Indeed, Paula and Bridget have spent 51 years dressing alike, working together, and practically living in parallel. So, while it seems paranormal, it's likely just an extraordinary sibling bond. Viewers thought they spotted a shape-shifting reptilian on the news, but the truth was more technological. In an old CTV news clip that resurfaced online, a female reporter delivers the headlines when suddenly her eyes appear to glitch. During a blink, her eyes don't look human for a split second, they seem fixed and glazed over, almost like a doll's, or a computer-rendered image. Experts explained that it was a rolling screen repaint artifact from the broadcast. Basically, this was an analog TV signal glitch. On old antenna TV, if the signal degrades at the wrong moment, in this case when she blinked, part of the previous frame's data can briefly hold on for a second. The result? Her eyes open from a prior frame overlaid on her face while blinking, creating a creepy illusion that her eyes blinked but didn't close? Technical or not, it looked really freaky, like an NPC in a video game failing to load its textures. Even after hearing the explanation, some joked, "Sure, that's what they want you to believe." This one isn't a glitch in the video, it's a glitch in the broadcast itself, and it's straight up like something out of a techno thriller. In November 1987, Chicago sportscaster Dan Roan was doing the nightly news when suddenly the signal hijacked. TV screens went black for a second, and then viewers were suddenly staring at a bizarre figure. Someone in a Max Headroom mask bobbing around in front of a swiveling metal background. No sound, just 30 seconds of this super creepy masked intruder. Engineers managed to regain control on that channel, but it wasn't over. About 2 hours later, during a Doctor Who episode on another station, Max Headroom hacker struck again, this time with audio. The masked person spoke in distorted garbles, laughed, moaned, even exposed their bare behind to the camera while being spanked with a fly swatter. Yeah, it was really weird. After about 90 seconds, the pirate broadcast ended. Viewers and station officials were completely baffled. Who was that? How did they break into major TV station signals? The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but to this day, the culprits have still never been caught or identified. Even decades later, watching the Max Headroom incident on YouTube will give you a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. Somebody has the chance to have the best deathbed confession of all time. Imagine your grandfather, you're saying your final goodbyes, and he's like, I was Max Headroom. That would be crazy.
Back in 2014, ABC 7 covered a story about a strange creature captured by a couple in South Texas. Jackie Stocks told the news crew that her husband spotted a weird creature in the yard eating corn. The husband said he'd hunted raccoons and said he'd never heard one growl like this before.
Harma says one of the big signs it's not a raccoon is its growl.
Now, they also interviewed an apparent wildlife expert who looked at footage of the strange animal and said it was probably a canine with mange. Thing is, canines do not use their hands the way this thing does. I mean, have you ever seen your dog eat like this? I didn't think so. Wildlife expert, maybe go get a new career? I don't know. This footage was shown on One India News a few years ago. In Jharkhand, a group of bikers were riding along late at night when they saw this person walking along the side of the road. The video is pretty grainy, but you can still make out the figure. It looks pale, extremely thin, and moves in this weird, unnatural way. It doesn't seem to move its arms. It's like that character in Seinfeld that doesn't move when they walk. When it turns its head, it also seems to have these glowing yellowish eyes. So people online started commenting that this thing looked a lot like an alien. Of course, no one knows for sure what the bikers caught on camera, but whatever it is, I would be very uncomfortable seeing it anywhere at any time, let alone a rural road in the middle of the night. Back in 2019, 9 News Australia ran a story about a pub called the Tyler's Kiln. The pub is owned by a man named Alistair Collins, who's pretty convinced that the place is haunted. Collins had a whole collection of late-night security footage showing some really odd stuff happening after hours. Chairs are seen sliding out from tables all by themselves. Umbrellas suddenly pop open with no one around, and doors slam shut even though the place is completely empty. One of the news anchors even tried to recreate the chair moving like it did in the footage, but he couldn't really pull it off. The ground is just too uneven to smoothly drag the chair like that, and setting up a string or some trick would have been pretty tough without showing up on camera. They also tested how the umbrella could have opened on its own and figured it would have been nearly impossible to pull off without someone being caught in the frame. The creepiest story probably came from an electrician who was working there during some renovations. He heard small doors swinging near the kitchen and loud footsteps heading upstairs. He thought the only other person in the building had, of course, gone upstairs, but when he called out, said person came walking out of the kitchen right in front of him. So what was going on up there? Well, they went upstairs to check, and no one was there. The whole top floor was completely empty. I love stories like that. This next piece of footage still gets shared around online from time to time. Back in 2016, something strange happened during a Sky Sports broadcast. After a game, pundits Jamie Carragher and Phil Neville were chatting about the match, as sports commentators do, but eagle-eyed viewers at home noticed something weird in the background. There was a shadowy figure moving across the empty field. At first, it just looked like a regular groundskeeper doing cleanup, pushing equipment across the grass, but then the dude just vanishes. Viewers immediately jumped online to talk about what they saw. One person wrote, "Did anyone else notice the ghost groundsman?" Another said, "Monday Night Football, keep an eye out, there's an effing ghost groundsman in the Northeast." And someone else joked, "Ghost groundsman at the Stadium of Light, the ground needs an exorcism." No one from Sky Sports or the stadium ever confirmed what it actually was, and the pundits never addressed it. This right here is what's known as one of the most radioactive areas of Chernobyl. That's saying a lot. After the explosion in 1986, a lot of the melted core material ended up pooling underneath the plant. One of the most dangerous things left behind is what's now known as the elephant's foot, this giant solid mass of radioactive goo made up of melted nuclear fuel, metal, sand, and concrete. It got the name because of the way it looks, like a huge wrinkled lump It kind of looks like elephant skin. At the time it formed, it was extremely radioactive. Just standing near it for a few minutes back then would have killed you. Photos were taken by bouncing cameras off mirrors so that no one had to get too close. The surface was so hot that it was physically burning through the floors. These days it's cooled down a lot, and it's not instantly lethal anymore, but it's still dangerously radioactive, and it's locked away deep inside the ruins of the plant. This is footage of one of the reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant exploding. So on March 11th, 2011, there was a massive 9.0 earthquake off the coast of Japan. This caused a giant tsunami which hit the power plant. The plant was designed to shut down automatically during emergencies like earthquakes, but the tsunami flooded the backup generators, which were supposed to keep the reactors cool. And with no power, the cooling system failed, and over the next few hours, the reactors started to overheat. The pressure built up, and 3 of the reactors went into full meltdown. Hydrogen gas built up inside the reactors, and eventually it exploded, sending radioactive material into the air. The fallout spread to nearby towns, and thousands had to evacuate. The ocean got contaminated as well. And on top of that, there were more nuclear emergencies, including a radioactive leak into a wastewater storage pool. Cleanup is still happening. Could take more than 40 years to fully decommission the plant. While the reactors have been shut down, the area around Fukushima is still heavily contaminated, and large parts are still off limits. This is footage of workers cleaning up radioactive sludge from the K East Basin. The K East Basin was a large pool at the Hanford site in Washington, D.C. It stored used nuclear fuel from a reactor called the N reactor. It was built in the 50s close to the Columbia River, which made it risky if anything leaked. While over time the fuel started to break down, creating a thick radioactive sludge at the bottom of the pool. The basin became heavily contaminated, and it was getting concerning, so the US Department of Energy decided that it needed to be cleaned up. Workers removed the fuel and sludge over the course of years. Once the cleanup was done, they drained the water and filled the basin with grout to prevent anything left inside from spreading. These workers were vacuuming about 55 cubic yards of radioactive ooze. They stood on grates suspended above the 20-foot deep basin and used vacuuming equipment at the end of long poles. You'll notice there are also shots from the underwater cameras that they used to help guide their work. This is drone footage of Pripyat, a place that's been frozen in time ever since the Chernobyl disaster in '86. This town, once home to workers at the nuclear plant, was evacuated within 36 hours of the meltdown, and people left everything behind. The streets are now empty, the buildings are decaying, and nature is slowly covering the area. As you can see, this footage is kinda eerie. The abandoned buildings, the rusted playgrounds, the iconic Ferris wheel. It looks like a set from The Walking Dead. As cold and quiet as the place is, though, radiation is still very much a problem here, and most of the town is off limits. What you're looking at here is just one of the many nuclear explosions at a test site called Semipalatinsk in what is now Kazakhstan. The Semipalatinsk test site was one of the most active places for nuclear weapons testing during the Cold War. Between 1949 and 1989, the Soviet Union conducted over 450 nuclear tests here. This made it one of the most radioactive places in the world. The tests were kept secret from the public for years, but the long-term effects are still being felt to this day. People living nearby have suffered from higher rates of cancer and more birth defects, and the environment's been permanently damaged. The site was abandoned after the Soviet Union fell, but to this day, radiation levels are still very dangerous in some parts. Now we have this gray mound of rock near Weldon Spring, Missouri. It doesn't look all that interesting, but the backstory is pretty nuts. During World War II, the site was used to produce explosives. Then in the 50s and 60s, uranium was enriched for nuclear weapons at the facility. The problem was, when the operation shut down in the late 60s, they didn't really clean up. There were piles of uranium and radium, TNT, and asbestos left behind. It was just this giant toxic mess. If someone were to fall into it, they'd end up like that dude in RoboCop. So to deal with it, the government decided to cover it all up. Not in a conspiratorial sense, I mean literally just cover it up. They built a giant hill to seal in all the radioactive waste and chemical debris. This mound is now called the Weldon Springs Site Remedial Action Project Disposal Cell, but locals have just nicknamed it the Nuclear Waste Adventure Trail. Today, people can visit the site, climb to the top of the mound, and get a view of the surrounding area. There's really not much to see other than grass out in the distance, but I guess it's cool to stand on. The hill is used by birdwatchers as well, and amateur astronomers who just like looking at the clear skies at night. I can't say that this would be my go-to spot on like a pleasant nature walk. I get that it's supposedly totally safe now, but I don't know, I still wouldn't want to spend too much time in a place like this. According to one former security guard though, they spent years working at the site without any major health problems. Still, it's a pretty weird spot for a tourist attraction.
When a news crew went looking for ghost stories, they might have gotten more than they bargained for. In 2021, WNYT News Channel 13 in upstate New York did a live report from the Green Ridge Cemetery as part of a Halloween segment. Reporter Sam Hessler was on air in the pre-dawn hours, walking among the tombstones while a guide shared spooky historical tales. The broadcast went smoothly until viewers at home noticed something on their screens that even the crew on site missed. In the background, behind Sam, a misty white figure seemed to drift between the graves. It was brief and subtle, a flicker of what looked like a person or a fog moving fast. After the live shot, one astonished viewer alerted the station, and Sam herself was stunned reviewing the footage. She hadn't seen anything in person. WNYT later acknowledged the eerie moment, assuring folks the clip was unedited and truly aired live. The internet, of course, lit up with ghost caught on live TV posts and theories. Some paranormal enthusiasts called it one of the best accidental ghost sightings on a news broadcast, evidence of a spirit roaming the cemetery. Skeptics countered that it could have been a camera glitch, a passing car's headlights reflecting, or even a stray piece of insect or dust close to the lens creating a blur. The station's own write-up teased it as something almost too crazy to be real and encouraged viewers to watch and decide for themselves. You're watching HGTV and suddenly an emergency alert pops up warning that the end of the world is here. What do? That nightmare scenario actually happened to some TV viewers in Southern California in September 2017. Without warning, regular programming was interrupted by the emergency alert system. The typical alert banner scrolled, but then things got truly terrifying. A booming male voice came on and proclaimed, "Realize this, that in the last days extremely violent times will come." Imagine hearing that out of the blue on a Thursday morning and you're just trying to love it or list it. Understandably, people freaked out. It sounded like a prophecy of an imminent apocalypse or some wartime broadcast. As dramatic as it was, this turned out not to be the work of pranksters or an alien overlord, but simply a technical glitch and incredibly bad timing during a routine test of the emergency alert system. In short, the system glitched out and aired a fire and brimstone sermon by mistake. Cox and Spectrum cable customers heard what sounded like a doomsday warning, but it was just Pastor Chuck Swindoll quoting the Bible, 2 Timothy 3:1, on an FM station. Both the cable company and the FCC confirmed it was an error, not a hack, but not before scaring the heck out of viewers. In the middle of a live US Congress debate, viewers suddenly saw something Russian. In January 2017, politics junkies watching a C-SPAN online feed got a strange surprise. The feed, which was showing a live House of Representatives session, abruptly switched to Russia Today, the Kremlin-funded news channel, for about 10 minutes. Given that this occurred amid intense news about Russian cyber interference, many thought C-SPAN had been hacked by Russians in real time. C-SPAN quickly investigated and put out a statement. They didn't believe it was a hack, but rather a routing technical error. The leading theory is that some glitch caused the RT feed to literally overlap and replace the C-SPAN feed on their site. In simulation terms, it's like two different programs momentarily cross-wired. The timing, however, was almost comical. It happened just hours after a power outage oddly halted a Senate hearing about Russian hacking. Even Even Waters, whose speech was interrupted, remarked on the curious timing and demanded a clear explanation. Seeing Moscow news pop up in a US government broadcast felt like a scene from a spy movie, or a reminder that the simulation has a twisted sense of humor. Our final glitch was literally one word caught in an endless loop, and of course, that word was Russia. Also in January 2017, I guess a bad month for TV gremlins, MSNBC's show Hardball experienced a freaky moment. Journalist Dave Ignatius was talking to host Chris Matthews about, ironically, Russian interference in US politics. He said the word Russia and bang. The screen flickered and started repeating Russia, Russia, Russia over and over in a feedback loop. Chris Matthews looked confused as the glitch kept going for several seconds, echoing Russia in a creepy cadence until the control room cut to commercial. Given the climate at the time, Twitter exploded with jokes that Moscow hackers or the Kremlin Matrix had struck again, but most likely this was just a bizarre technical malfunction. Perhaps a failing satellite feed or encoding error that caused a few seconds of audio/video to loop. The fact it looped that particular word on that particular topic, well, that was gold for conspiracy lovers and also late-night comedians. MSNBC assured it wasn't intentional and nothing nefarious was found. If we do live in a simulation, it definitely has a flair for dramatic irony.
So when I first saw this clip, I thought it was AI. This is Kid Strobe, aka Frenchie Baby, a dancer who can obviously move in freaky ways. He's known for having the most flexible arms in the world. Frenchie Baby started bone breaking and turfing when he was a teenager. Turfing is a style of dance that began in Oakland, California. It's all about storytelling through movement. Kid Strobe and his friends would perform on public transit to earn money and stay involved in the dance world. Frenchie Baby's extreme flexibility has led to a lot of big opportunities. He's been featured in music videos, he's appeared on shows like Romania's Got Talent, where he got the golden buzzer, America's Got Talent, So You Think You Can Dance, The Ellen Show, and Jimmy Kimmel Live. So you ever seen anything like this before? Yeah, I have not either. That is crazy. So this is Gary Turner, aka Stretch. Obviously his skin is incredibly stretchy. He holds the Guinness World Record for the stretchiest skin on the planet thanks to a rare condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It affects the body's connective tissue, making his skin super stretchy without it tearing. He can pull the skin on his stomach more than 6 inches away from his body. It's very surreal to watch. Gary's been showing off his bizarre talent for years, performing all over the world and even joining sideshows like the Circus of Horrors and Ripley's Believe It or Not. He's pulled off some seriously wild stunts on stage, like stretching his neck skin over his face like you just saw, or using his skin as a drink holder. It's freaky, sure, but also oddly fascinating? I don't know how to describe it. It's really weird. Beyond the shock factor though, Gary's used his condition to educate people about Ehlers-Danlos and raise awareness. Ever looked at a tennis racket and thought to yourself, yeah, I could probably squeeze my whole body into that? Well, this next guy has. This is Daniel Browning Smith, aka Rubber Boy. Wonder how he got that name. He's hands down one of the most flexible people to ever walk the planet. He's a contortionist, actor, stuntman, TV host, all-around performer who holds 7 Guinness World Records for his flexibility. His body moves in ways that just don't seem possible. That's because he has a rare genetic condition called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which gives his joints and skin an extreme level of stretch and bend that most people could just never pull off. Daniel grew up in Meridian, Mississippi with a brother and sister. From the time he was 4, he was obsessed with contortionists and dreamed of becoming the best in the world. His first trick was jumping off the top bunk of his bed and landing in a full straddle split, which, yeah, shocked the hell out of his family. As a teen, he started doing street performances to show his flexibility and get noticed. When he turned 18, he joined the circus and then started formal training under Master Lu Yi at the San Francisco School of Circus Arts. And from there, things took off and Rubber Boy became one of the most well-known contortionists in the world. If you're a horror movie fan, there's a good chance you've seen this next guy and you just didn't know it. He's been playing zombies and other creatures since 2016. Troy James is a contortionist and actor who's built a reputation for moving like something straight out of one of your worst nightmares, in the best way possible though. He's known for his freaky fast exorcist crab walk, crazy backbends. A lot of people first saw him on America's Got Talent, where he bent himself into shapes that had the judges squirming in their seats, but before that, he was already acting in horror movies. Troy is from Canada and actually worked a regular office job before going full-time into contortion and acting. What makes him stand out isn't just how flexible he is, but how he uses that flexibility. He embodies these freaky, inhuman creatures. If you've ever seen The Void, Channel Zero, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Rabbit, the Chucky TV series, you've seen him in action. I love it. No CGI needed. That's just all him. We need more of that in modern movies. This is Zlata, one of the most flexible women in the world. Zlata, whose real name is Julia Guntel, is a world-famous contortionist known for doing things with her body that most of us can't even imagine, let alone attempt. I can barely get through a night of sleep without my shoulders and my back hurting. I can't even imagine doing stuff like this. She was born in Kazakhstan and raised in Germany. She started out as a gymnast before realizing she had an extreme level of flexibility that went way beyond the norm. Poses where she basically turns herself into a human knot. She's been performing since she was a teenager and eventually earned the nickname Zlata, which means golden in Russian, fitting considering she's held multiple world records. Her spine is so flexible that she's able to rotate her upper body 180 degrees. A lot of her poses just look like they've been photoshopped. Not the case though. Zlata's appeared on TV shows and live circus acts and in lots of photo shoots that really show off her insane flexibility. This is archival footage of a nuclear test being carried out at a site called Marilinga in Australia. The British government carried out a series of nuclear tests here between 1956 and 1963. 7 nuclear explosives were detonated above ground, along with over 600 minor trials. These minor tests were anything but harmless though. They involved experiments with plutonium, uranium, and other toxic stuff that spread contamination across the area. The fallout impacted not just the test site, but also nearby Aboriginal communities, many of whom were never properly warned or relocated. And the cleanup, which didn't start until decades later, has been heavily criticized. At one point, workers just bulldozed contaminated soil into pits and buried it. Some plutonium-contaminated areas were only partially cleaned and still are a risk today. Even after remediation, scientists have found radioactive particles spread far beyond the core test zones. Marilinga is technically open to visitors now, and some tours are available, but access is limited, which is a good thing. Long-term effects of the testing on the indigenous people here is still not addressed all that well, and the full health impact still isn't fully known. So it's isolated, but it's one of the most contaminated places in the southern hemisphere. This is footage taken in what's called a radon health mine. So this is a place where people pay to inhale radioactive gas for health reasons. The one you're looking at here happens to be in Germany, but Montana is really the place to go if you want to try this out for yourself, which I wouldn't do, but some swear by it. So in Montana, there are a handful of abandoned uranium mines that have been repurposed into these radon health mines. These mines naturally emit radon gas, which is radioactive and is said to increase your risk of cancer. But for decades, some people have believed that short-term exposure can actually help with conditions like arthritis, asthma, and just chronic pain. So instead of avoiding it, visitors pay to spend hours underground sitting in folding chairs just breathing it in. It's not backed by any major medical organizations, and the long-term effects here are questionable at best. Radon is a known carcinogen, and the Environmental Protection Agency lists it as the second leading cause of lung cancer in the US. Gotta say, this has to be one of the strangest uses of a radioactive site. This was the Baker Event nuclear test conducted at Bikini Atoll on July 25th of 1946. Bikini Atoll, part of the Marshall Islands in the Pacific, was used by the United States as a nuclear testing site after World War II. Between 1946 and 1958, the US detonated 23 nuclear weapons here, including some of the most powerful ever tested. The most infamous was Castle Bravo in 1954, Nur, which ended up being more than twice as powerful as expected and spread radioactive fallout across a much wider area than they'd planned. Nearby islanders weren't given proper warning and were exposed to high levels of radiation. Some were relocated, but the long-term effects were pretty bad, mainly increased cancer rates and, again, birth defects. To this day, the area is uninhabitable. Some former residents have been allowed some short visits, but nobody actually lives here full time. Oddly though, they tried to promote Bikini as a great place to dive. To be fair, the lagoon is filled with shipwrecks from World War II, but that's because it was a fleet used as nuclear target practice. Yeah, I don't know if this would be the first place on my list of diving destinations. This is Lop Nur in Xinjiang, China. It's a dried up lake bed also known as the Sea of Death. For decades, this was China's main nuclear testing site. Starting in the 60s all the way up to 1996, they ran 45 nuclear tests out here. They dropped explosives from planes, they did underground detonations, and blew up hydrogen bombs. It's super remote, which made it ideal for military use, but that didn't mean people weren't being affected. Some of the blasts released huge clouds of radioactive dust, and to this day, no one really knows the full impact on people or the environment. After the last test in 1996, the site went quiet. Until recently, in late 2023, satellite images showed some new construction popping up. Roads, fences, some buildings. Some think China's getting ready to start testing again, which the government has, of course, denied.
Coming in at number 10 is Bali Hotel. Graphic designer Paulina Archalute went viral on TikTok in 2022 after exploring a completely abandoned hotel in Bali. In a series of TikToks that have racked up almost 30 million views in total, Paulina and her partner explored the empty resort with 266 rooms left in near perfect condition. The video begins with a before and after shot showing just how eerie the site is. Paulina has not been able to find any history on the hotel, but believes it was suddenly abandoned around 2020 and no one seems to know why. She said the last reviews of the hotel guests were written in 2020, so I guess it became abandoned throughout that year. The place was completely open, there were no signs of closure, no fence or anything like that. If anything, at the beginning we thought it was a functioning hotel, as we noticed 2 helmets placed on the ground by its reception, so we thought someone is still in the hotel. Now the footage shows different areas of the venue, including the entrance, which has been taken over by nature, as well as various rooms, dining spaces, and trinkets that Paulina discovered. Now some rooms are still made up for guests who will never arrive, with furniture, towels, leaflets, and toilet paper in place. Later, Paulina and her partner even found plates with half-eaten food on the table, as well as documents in the staff room. Now this is truly haunting. It's like everyone just magically disappeared. Number 9. Pripyat Amusement Park. The Pripyat Amusement Park is an abandoned amusement park located in Pripyat, Ukraine. It was to have its grand opening on May 1st, 1986, in time for the May Day celebrations, but these plans were cancelled on April 26th when the Chernobyl disaster occurred only a few kilometers away. Several sources report that the park was open for a short time on April 27th to locals, but they were forced to evacuate as reports of dangerously high levels of radiation in the area started to emerge, something inhabitants and authorities were unaware of the day of the nuclear incident. Now, radiation levels around the park vary. The liquidators washed radiation into the soil after the helicopters carrying radioactive materials used the grounds as a landing strip, so concreted areas are less radioactive. Today, the park remains untouched and the unused rides are disintegrating or consumed with mold. Many explorers go to this abandoned place to see what could have been. Number 8. Lennox Castle. Lennox Castle in Scotland was built in 1812 for John Lennox Casside Lennox. He was supposedly a distant relative of the Clan Cansyd, who were descendants of some of the most notable ancient earls of Lennox. The castle was home to the important Scottish family until it was converted into an asylum for the mentally ill in the 1930s and a hospital during World War II, when the existing mentally ill patients were transferred to other buildings on the property. Apparently, fights among the patients were common, and in one particularly bad fight, much of the staff, along with uninvolved patients, ran from the hospital. The rioters were locked inside, and in the end, they significantly damaged the ward. Now, the hospital was vacated by the 1980s and officially closed in 2002. There's now talk of converting the building into flats, but for now it lies abandoned, decaying, as there was a fire there in 2008. Number 7. Linwood Hall. Linwood Hall is a neoclassical revival mansion in Elkins Park, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. It's the 12th largest historic house in the US, and it features a whopping 110 rooms, like a ballroom that can accommodate 1,000 guests. It once held the most important private art collection of European masterpieces in the country. It was built in the 1900s for Peter Errol Brown Winneter, a businessman who became wealthy from investing in public transit and meat packing, among other things. Now, he had 3 sons, one of whom died on the Titanic, and he lived in the house until he died in 1915. His son Joseph inherited the mansion and lived there until he died in 1943, and no surviving members of the family, even his children, wanted to take on the responsibility of the place. By 1945, his estate was valued at $98,368,058. A developer later tried to sell Linwood, but the only taker was a fundamentalist preacher, Carl McIntyre, who bought the home in 1952 for $192,000. Now, it went into foreclosure in 2006 when the McIntyre organization couldn't pay the mortgage, and it lies abandoned to this day. Now, I can't imagine exploring this place as it is huge. There are still tables and chairs set up, as well as furniture, and the inside of the pool lays filled with debris. Number 6. Lai Family Mansion. Built in 1929, the Megong Ghost House, aka the Lai Family Mansion, is a freaky place with a heartbreaking history. Located in the Taiwanese countryside, it's been abandoned since the 1950s when the family fled abruptly. Now, there's plenty of stories for why the family left, but the main story is that the family's maid was having an affair with her employer, Lai Rong-yu, and when the secret became public, she died after jumping down a well. A few years later, the property was occupied by members of the Kuomintang of China, KMT, many of whom were also thought to have died by ending their own lives, which exacerbated its reputation as haunted. Today, it sits untouched with nature and strange paintings overtaking the outside of the building.
And number 5 is this organic drone. Now, what you're about to witness is a perplexing 15-second clip of someone using Google Earth to explore Japan, only to stumble upon a bizarre, unidentified flying object. It bears a resemblance to a drone, yet its eerie, organic appearance defies any human-made explanation. Could this be an extraterrestrial entity discreetly surveying our world? The enigma surrounding this footage raises eyebrows, and it's perplexing why no official statement or disclosure has been made. Is this an elaborate hoax or an undisclosed government experiment, or potentially an authentic close encounter? Possibilities are boundless. And number 4 is clip095.mp4, a cryptic enigma ensnared in a mere 15 seconds of unsettling footage, beckons curiosity, but heed the FBI's cautionary warning. At first glance, it appears as a haphazard concoction of disconcerting VHS elements. Masked figures veiled in ambiguity creep ominously. An eerie clock-like object looms, and its significance eluding comprehension. The undertone of dread lingers, akin to being late for an inexplicable appointment. Now, why, you might wonder, does the FBI warn against delving deeper into this mysterious abyss? Is this a sinister experiment gone awry, or perhaps an encrypted message veiled within this unusual visual discord? Clip 095.mp4 is a digital Pandora's box, tempting the curious to brave its haunting mysteries. And number 3 is the NBC shapeshifter footage from 1995, a piece of unsettling media that delves deep into the realm of conspiracy theories. Enter the reptile man hypothesis, a belief system suggesting that humanoid reptilian beings have coexisted with humanity since the ancient days of Mesopotamia, with many suspecting Hollywood as their clandestine hub. This peculiar clip follows NBC reporter Isaiah Carey during a routine 90s broadcast, but things take a bizarre turn. Carey nonchalantly nonchalantly engulfs a grasshopper, yet upon closer examination, we're confronted with a perplexing sight. An unusually elongated, somewhat pointed tongue and an offbeat shade, a hint of green. In a curious move, Carrie averts his gaze from the camera just as this peculiar act unfolds, sparking conjecture. Was this an attempt to conceal a reptilian trait, or perhaps a reaction to an embarrassing, stomach-churning moment? Could the CIA be suppressing this video to shield the existence of an alien race? Share your thoughts in the comments. The truth may be stranger than we dare to imagine. At number 2 is the movie Incantation on Netflix, the Taiwanese horror gem directed by Kevin Ko, which plunges viewers into a spine-chilling world of found footage. Lee Ronan's documentary journey to reunite with her daughter Dodo takes a sinister turn when a haunting taboo from their past resurfaces. The suspense builds as Ronan's group, including her boyfriend Dom and friend Yuan, unwittingly stumbles upon a malevolent cult ceremony in a forbidden tunnel, invoking a curse that binds their fates. Dodo's descent into the paranormal, encountering eerie baddies and a paralyzing chant, keeps us on the edge of our seats. Ronan's quest to unveil the malevolent entity, the Mother Buddha, and a sinister incantation tied to an ominous hand symbol. But the film's shocking twist at the end comes when Ronan reveals that she intentionally misled us, the viewers, sharing the incantation to dilute the curse, effectively cursing us. Desperate to save Dodo, Ronan faces the Mother Buddha's visage, bearing the curse's weight until she meets a tragic end. However, there is a glimmer of hope as we realize that we, the viewers, are now a part of the curse, forever entangled in the film's eerie narrative, which is a chilling and immersive experience unlike any other in the horror genre. Incantation leaves us with lingering dread, reminding us that we're not just spectators, we're cursed participants in this haunting tale. At number 1 is the Russian Sleep Experiment. The Russian Sleep Experiment is a chilling tale rooted in the depths of the internet's urban legends, which takes us back to the dark days of the 1940s. See, Soviet scientists allegedly embarked on a twisted journey using an experimental gas-based stimulant to keep 5 political prisoners awake for 15 harrowing days. No CCTV back then, just microphones and thick glass windows for surveillance. As the days ticked by, the subjects' conversations grew darker, more serious, hinting at the creeping vulnerability that sleep deprivation induces. Around day 5, the subjects began to display signs of severe paranoia. They whispered secrets into the microphones, desperately seeking release. Then came the screaming on the 9th day. One subject ran amok, tearing his own vocal cords out, while the others remained eerily calm, whispering secrets and plotting. But the worst was yet to come. The researchers discovered a grotesque scene on day 14. 4 subjects still technically alive, but mutilated beyond recognition, consuming their own flesh. When the soldiers attempted to remove them, chaos ensued, with one soldier losing his life. In the aftermath, the survivors showcased inexplicable resilience and an insatiable thirst for the gas that kept them awake. They were the embodiment of a darkness lurking within us all, a madness kept at bay by sleep. The tale ends with the chilling revelation as one of them utters their final word, "So nearly free."
And we're starting things off with a tour of the Warren Occult Museum by Lorraine Warren herself. There's quite a bit of footage out there of Tony Spera talking about the items in the museum, or even Ed Warren. Not so much stuff with Lorraine touring the museum though, so this is a cool clip. Lorraine discusses how evil many of the artifacts in the room are, making a special point of singling out the infamous Annabelle doll, a doll that'll come up again on this list. It's obvious from this clip that Annabelle is kind of at the center of the museum, said to be the most evil thing housed there. In this clip, Lorraine seems to have a hard time discussing the doll, making it known that she doesn't even want to look at it in the face. Next up on the list, we have a piece of archival footage, Ed and Lorraine Warren assisting in an exorcism. Now, whether or not you believe in exorcisms, or even agree with the ethics of exorcisms, there's one thing most of us can probably agree on, that this is an unsettling piece of footage. I'm going to be saying this a number of times on the list, but any creepy video shot in degraded, low-quality VHS like this just has an eerie kind of vibe about it. And this one is especially disturbing because it's an exorcism. This was actually a Buddhist exorcism. There's a language barrier here, and it's of course hard to make out exactly what's going on, but you can hear that the woman being exorcised is in distress, making unnatural noises, convulsing, speaking in a croaky, demonic sounding voice. The video cuts before the ritual is over. Even if you don't believe there was actually any possession going on here, just the circumstance alone is unsettling. It feels like a clip you'd see in the opening of a found footage horror movie or something. At number 8, we have a paranormal investigation. This video was posted by the YouTube channel overnight. Not only was the crew able to spend the night at the museum, but they did a paranormal investigation too, complete with a spirit box, the whole deal. I love paranormal investigation videos. I'm not even sold on ghosts myself, but I just find this stuff entertaining, even when nothing actually happens. This is a solid ghost hunt though. The ambience is obviously great. They're in a room packed to the brim with not only items that are supposedly haunted, but downright evil too. At one point they pulled the spirit box out. If you don't know what a spirit box is, it's a device used in paranormal investigations to communicate with spirits or entities from the spirit world. It works by rapidly scanning through radio frequencies, creating a constant stream of white noise. It usually just sounds like but paranormal investigators believe that spirits can manipulate this noise to form coherent voices or words, which can then be heard through the device's speaker. One point you hear the box say what sounds like out, and it actually comes through quite clearly. There's also a part where one of them asks if there are any good spirits in the room, and to make themselves known by making the device in his hand spike. And immediately after he says it, the thing goes off. Pretty interesting. Number 7, the Tony Spera tour. This next video is just a good tour of the entire museum. You get a good 360-degree view of everything. Tony tells some good stories about some of the artifacts housed there, describing the items as the opposite of holy. He tells one particularly unnerving story about the Annabelle doll. Apparently one day Ed Warren was giving a tour discussing some of the objects in the museum. A couple who'd rode in on a motorcycle were on the tour, and the boyfriend started mocking Annabelle, tapping on the glass, taunting the doll, saying how bogus the whole thing was. Well, later that day, he and his girlfriend were driving down the road on the way home from the museum when he lost control of the motorcycle, crashing into a tree. He died instantly. The girlfriend survived, but apparently the last thing they'd been talking about was the Annabelle doll, laughing and joking about the situation right before the accident. Next on the list, we have old footage of Ed Warren showcasing some of the artifacts from the museum. I'm not sure what the footage was used for, possibly an old documentary or news story. I don't know if it was ever released though, because the transfer is pretty low quality, and it still has the time code on the bottom, which would have been taken off, of course. Once again, we got some old grainy footage here, which is just inherently creepy, and hearing Ed Warren himself discuss the items just adds another layer of spook factor to the whole thing. The standout from this clip is when Ed discusses the Doll of Shadows. For starters, the Doll of Shadows has got to be one of the most disturbing looking dolls I've ever seen. It really does look evil. And him talking about how it was constructed with parts of animals and human bones, and that it's been known to haunt people's dreams. It's pretty spooky. He tells a story of 2 doll collectors who acquired the doll after a dealer practically gave it to them for free. On the first night they had the doll in their home, they woke up with scratches on their bodies, both having had a horrible nightmare. The same nightmare. The following morning, they woke up with even worse scratches, and that's when they contacted the Warrens, who took the doll off their hands. Apparently, the Doll of Shadows is so cursed and frightening that it's been responsible for stopping people's hearts while in their nightmare-induced state.
Number 5. Villa de Vecchi. Villa de Vecchi is located near Camp Como, Italy. The House of Witches dates back to 1854 to 1857, when it was built as a summer house for Count Felix de Vici. The family was only able to spend a few years there, as they had tragedy after tragedy right after it was built. First, the architect died a year after construction. Then in 1862, Count de Vici came home to discover his wife dead and his daughter missing. When he could not find her after a year of searching, he died by ending his own life. His brother then moved into the home, and his family continued to live there until World War II. Now, it has been vacant since the 1960s, and an avalanche in 2002 wiped out all the houses in the area except this one. Now, you'd think with all the tragedies surrounding the house that it would succumb to the avalanche, but no. Let me just say, that is so freaky. Now, the inside of the house today is covered in dust and most notably has graffiti all over the walls. Number 4. Willard Asylum for the Chronic Insane. The Willard Asylum for the Chronic Insane is a listed building on the U.S. National Register of Historical Places, and it first opened its doors in about 1869. The campus was divided between a women's side and a men's side, with a violent end and non-violent end. Administration buildings sat in the middle, and the land had originally been designated for agricultural purposes, so the hospital ran its own farm with crops grown and tended by the patients. Now, patients were unconfined, able to walk about as they pleased, but there were entire buildings devoted to treatments like electroshock therapy and ice baths, as well as operating theaters and a morgue. A cemetery on the grounds features markers with numbers, no names for the thousands buried there. Now, after Geraldo Rivera's 1972 expose on the deplorable conditions at Willowbrook Asylum, numbers in large institutions declined sharply. Willard Asylum discharged its final patient in 1995 and shuttered its doors for good. The building is currently rotting and decayed, housing the secrets of what the patients went through. Number 3. Ridges Asylum. Ridges Asylum originally opened in 1874 and was known as the Athens Asylum for the Insane. It had 2 wings, one for the female patients and one for the male patients. Now, the most violent patients were housed at the outermost tip of each wing. By the start of the 1900s, the asylum had become dangerously overcrowded, and rumors of inhumane treatment at the hands of the overworked staff were growing. Despite this, it was not officially closed until 1993. Now, some parts of the building are still in use, while other areas are completely abandoned. Now, one of the scariest places in the building is the outline of a body where Margaret Schrilling died in 1979. She apparently got lost in the disused part of the hospital in the winter of 1978-79 and was not found for more than a month. When the corpse was finally removed, it left a stain that could never be washed away. It's still there today, and if you go there, you can see it, which is just haunting. Margaret is one of the many ghosts who is said to walk the asylum at night. Strange figures have been seen roaming around old floors, and others have heard disembodied voices, footsteps, and screaming. It's a scary and disgusting place, and I would never set foot in there. Number 2. El Hotel de Salto. In San Antonio del Tequendama, Colombia, a 1920s residential mansion was constructed overlooking the falls. For 60 years, it operated as a hotel, and it was built in 1923 as a luxury hotel to host elite travelers visiting the area. Ordered and built by the President of Colombia and designed by architect Carlos Arturo Tapes, the hotel was a place for the richest to gather and indulge in most exceptional experiences. Now, it was meant to be renovated in the 1950s, but due to pollution of the Bogota River, the project was dismissed. In the 1970s, sewage started affecting the river, so the hotel closed in the early 1990s as a result of the overwhelming pollution in the river. Now, some reports state that it's the second most polluted river worldwide, as the river is full of feces, waste, chemicals, and many other toxic things. Over the years, the hotel began to deteriorate until it was left deserted altogether. Today, the hotel is said to be haunted, and this is owing to the fact that many people have used its location as a place to end their life. It's also said that Muisca Indians used to jump into the falls to evade capture from Spanish conquerors. The myth is that those who jumped would turn into eagles and soar to freedom, and sadly this appeared to most wanderers, who would then leap to their death. This place is just full of tragedy. And coming in at number 1 is the Diplomat Hotel. The Dominican Hill Retreat House was built in 1913 atop a hill in the famed Philippine city of Pines. With the outbreak of World War II, it became a camp for refugees escaping the Japanese army, but it was eventually invaded. It was once occupied by refugees, nuns, and soldiers, but it was bombed by the American Armed Forces. People were taken advantage of and mistreated, tormented, and had their heads cut off. In the 1970s, the Wharton building was converted to the sophisticated and beautiful Diplomat Hotel, but the hotel was shut down by the 80s and left abandoned. The deserted, deteriorating building became infamous for being one of the most haunted ruins in the country. Currently, the old hotel is now under rehabilitation by the national government as a heritage and nature park. Now, many people have seen headless apparitions at night and reported hearing screams, cries, banging on doors, and other strange and desperate noises. Some believe the building is haunted by the restless spirits of its grim history, and that makes the most sense.
At number 10 is Safe Haven from VHS 2. I'm kicking off this list with Safe Haven because I know some of you guys are gonna seek out these videos against my better judgment. So out of all the entries on this list, if you're gonna watch anything, it better be this one. Safe Haven is a short in VHS 2 which takes you deep into the heart of Indonesian horror, and unless you speak Indonesian, you're gonna wanna watch with some subtitles, because there ain't any English to be found here. The recovered footage is from a news crew as they infiltrate an eerie cult's remote compound, hoping to expose their dark secrets. But what unfolds is a descent into pure terror. The brutality is in your face, and it all looks gut-wrenchingly real. If this short succeeds at anything, it's cranking up the tension because you're gonna feel your heart race. The found footage earned critical acclaim and reputation as one of the best found footage horror experiences ever, so brace yourself for a bone-chilling experience as you witness the cult's nightmarish ritual. But keep in mind, it's definitely not for the faint of heart, nor is any of the rest of the videos in this list. At number 9 is The Sacrament, which is essentially Jim Jones found footage. Is a retelling of the events in Jonestown where the pastor caused a mass unaliving, this time featuring Vice journalists who come into the heart of this eerie community, once thought to be a utopia. This cursed found footage unveils the sinister underbelly of religious leader known as the Father, aka Jim Jones, and his twisted followers. The documentary team unwaveringly investigates this secluded compound as they're met with increasing suspicion and deception from the cult. Father's charisma turns to menace, and the utopian community morphs into a nightmare. With cyanide-laced drinks, the hostages, and mass unalivings, it's a descent into madness to say the very least. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is the Slumber Party Alien Abduction. I love this one because the camera is strapped to a doggy. I don't love it because of what happens to the doggy, but I'm happy there's a dog in it. Here you've got Gary, Randy, Sean, Denny, Jen, and Zach. They decide to film their lakeside escapades by strapping a camera to their dog, Tank, a Yorkshire Terrier on a mission to capture all the fun, but things take a sinister turn when gray aliens decide to crash the party, lurking beneath the water as the group swims. As night falls, chaos ensues. The aliens plunge the house into darkness, creating chaos and snatching up Zach in a blink. They terrorize the rest of the gang, dragging them off in their sleeping bags with plans to drown them in the lake. Only Gary, Randy, and Jen, and Tank the doggy, manage to bolt, but their escape plan gets tanked when Tank barks and leads the aliens right to them. Come on, buddy. It's a full-blown horror show with fake police lights turning out to be a trap, and the abductions left and right. Gary gets lifted into the air by alien tractor beams, while Tank, injured and alone, watches as the camera's battery fades. This one is a real chiller. At number 7 is The Borderlands. In this chilling tale, 3 Vatican investigators venture into a 13th century church with sinister secrets hidden deep within the walls. When they roll up, the priest tries to win them over with footage of objects moving on the altar, but still, the film crew remains skeptical. That night, local hooligans burn a sheep outside of their digs, and it's getting weird. To make a long story short, they end up discovering an eerie door with pagan symbols leading to a dark, hellish descent, echoing with cries and screams, and things just go from bad to worse. As they journey into the depths, they uncover a horrifying history of sacrifice and a minister gone pagan. And then, it takes a surreal, stomach-turning twist as they're all forced to crawl through a tiny, smelly passageway, which is eventually revealed to be part of a monstrous digestive system secreting enzymes to devour the crew and leaving no trace of them behind, except for their camera. At number 6, Butterfly Kisses. Our story here starts with Gavin York, a struggling wedding videographer and film school dropout. He stumbles upon this collection, and well, curiosity gets the best of him. These tapes belong to a documentary created by 2 film students, Sophia and Feldman, back in 2004. They were on a mission to prove the existence of a chilling urban legend, Peeping Tom. Now, this Peeping Tom character, you can supposedly summon him by staring down Ilchester Tunnel at midnight for a whole hour without blinking. Sounds terrifying, right? But here's the kicker. When they review the footage, they realize that Peeping Tom isn't just a legend. He's actually inside of the camera, stalking them. Sophia's left alone in a nightmarish struggle. Fast forward to Galvin, who's set on proving Peeping Tom's existence. He brings in a documentary crew, but things take a dark turn. Questions arise about the authenticity of the tapes and Sophia Feldman's existence and the possibility of it all being just a hoax. Galvin's obsession wreaks havoc on his personal life, and he finds himself alone, abandoned by his family. And despite his efforts to gain credibility, Galvin is mocked and humiliated. Final blow comes when he when he vanishes inside Ilchester Tunnel, and 9 days later, his mangled body is discovered in a hotel room.
Next on the list we have Ed Warren provoking a demon. This piece of footage was kept in the Warren Occult Museum for years, not having been released to the public until 2020 when it was posted on YouTube to the official Ed and Lorraine Warren channel. Once again, we have old grainy VHS footage here, which it's just good. It's good ambience. Anyone who's a fan of like analog horror can probably get where I'm coming from. I can see something completely innocuous or innocent on an old home tape, but if it has that grain and the dull droning hum of the old camera, there's just something ominous about it. Especially given the context here, of course, where you have a famous paranormal investigator egging on a demon. As Ed calls for the entity to give a sign that it's there, a chair moves slightly. Eventually the entire table shifts pretty significantly. Not that this would be difficult to fake or anything, but the video's kinda creepy. I think it's mostly because of the context though. The Warrens are renowned. We've all heard of the wild stories about their paranormal encounters, so seeing supposed footage of one actually taking place is kind of cool. Number 4, the Satanic Idol. The Satanic Idol is a famous, or rather infamous, artifact housed at the museum. In this video, Tony Spera tells the story behind the demented-looking item. It looks kind of doofy at first, but there is something really off about it, in an unsettling kind of way. Apparently it was found by a hunter in the woods of Sandy Hook in Connecticut in 1991. The guy felt something unnerving about it, the fact that this strange thing was just sitting in the middle of the woods. He decided to walk away, but soon encountered a mysterious elderly man in black robes who began walking alongside him. The robed man never looked in the hunter's direction and didn't say a word. He contacted Ed and Lorraine and led them to the woods, where they determined that the strange figure was an idol used in satanic rituals. It was brought back to the museum, where it's sat ever since. But after just a couple days of having the idol in their possession, Ed found Lorraine curled up in a fetal position in the driveway, completely unresponsive. She was rushed to the hospital, where she spent 3 days in and out of consciousness. Eventually, she was fine, but the doctors had no idea what had caused it. Ed Warren claimed that it was the robed man, a satanic high priest, sending a warning message to Ed and Lorraine. And at number 3, we have Lorraine Warren discussing the Amityville Horror House. This clip was posted to YouTube by a Demonico artist who went to the Warrens Occult Museum in September of 2014, where this footage was taken. In it, Lorraine Warren is giving her personal account of what happened in the Amityville Horror House and the effect that the case had on her and Ed. Really how it messed them up afterwards. She talked about how terrible the place was, that if you offered her $1 billion, she'd never step foot in the place again. One moment that sticks out to me in this video is when she talks about being levitated. You hear her voice tremble right when she says levitated, almost like she's reliving the experience or just can't believe it herself. Her lips quiver. It really seems like she's recalling something traumatic. Up next, we have a video by Travels with Nick. Most of the video is him discussing some history on the Warrens before visiting the graves of Ed and Lorraine in Monroe, Connecticut. He also visits the Warren Occult Museum. And towards the end of the video, though, we get a clip from an old interview of the Warrens as they discuss some of the items in the museum. Ed discusses how the museum is not a place you should be after 9 o'clock at night, describing 9 to 6 as the psychic hours, the time where paranormal activity is at its peak. He also discusses many of the objects in the room and how they've been responsible, not just for causing mental torment on people that had interacted with them, but also physical trauma, or in some cases, death. And once again, according to Ed, that Raggedy Ann doll was the most evil thing in the museum. And finally, we have footage taken by Ed Warren of the White Lady, a ghost that is said to haunt Union Graveyard in Connecticut. For a long time, this footage was not available to the public, only being shown to small groups, in-person presentations by the Warrens themselves, sometimes at the Occult Museum. But the footage was recently released to the official Ed and Lorraine YouTube channel by Tony Spera. The White Lady is a specter that many have claimed to see roaming the graveyard at night. It's said that she died in childbirth and is now a lost, restless spirit in search of her baby. Stories of the graveyard attracted the attention of the Warrens, who went to investigate. On Ed's 7th night at the cemetery, he captured this footage. Now, I've said it plenty of times already, I know, but we get that beautiful old grainy VHS quality that just unsettles you right off the bat, especially because we're in a cemetery. This also makes it really tough to make out what's going on in the frame when the footage cuts to nighttime, but we do see something moving through the background. It's definitely white and kind of seems to fade in and out, almost as if it may be semi-translucent. Maybe it's just the context and low quality that gives it a bit of a creepy vibe though. What do you all think of the videos on this list? Let us know down in the comments. And
at number 10 is Watergate. The whole Watergate scandal is an iconic episode in American history, which emerged from the depths of political intrigue and skullduggery. In 1972, 5 individuals were apprehended while breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate office complex in Washington, D.C. Yet this was merely the tip of an iceberg of deception and malevolence. As the investigative tendrils extended, the nation learned that this break-in was just one facet of a vast conspiracy woven by figures linked to President Richard Nixon's re-election campaign, the Committee to Re-elect the President. A dark web of misdeeds unfurled, encompassing illicit wiretapping, espionage, campaign finance violations, and desperate attempts to cloak these sins in the shadow. The crescendo of this tale arrived with the revelation of the White House tapes. These recordings, captured by Nixon's Oval Office systems, delivered incontrovertible evidence of the president's entanglement in the cover-up. The dire consequence was Nixon's resignation on August 8, 1974, an unprecedented event in American politics that forever etched Watergate into our collective memory. At number 9 is VHS for sale. This eerie VHS tape is unearthed from the depths of an estate sale, which unfolds in a spine-tingling mystery that has left viewers baffled and unsettled. Among a trove of seemingly mundane items, this mysterious recording surfaces, offering a perplexing journey through a wooded expanse, innocuous enough during daylight. But it's when the nightfall that shrouds this footage in an ominous veil where the ordinary morphs into something far more sinister. Our unease is amplified as an undefinable ghostly entity is dragged ominously through the darkness. What is that mysterious and pale apparition, and why is it being dragged? The FBI warned about the consumption of such haunting footage tapes, hinting at something beyond our comprehension. There you venture into this unsettling realm of the unexplained. Proceed with caution, for the boundaries of the ordinary blur here, and what lies within may forever haunt your thoughts. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it if you did. At number 8 is the Chernobyl footage. In the shadowy realm of haunting found footage tapes, one chilling entry stands out: the Chernobyl footage. This eerie relic transports us back to the late 1980s, when the Chernobyl nuclear power plant became synonymous with disaster. On April of 1986, this date marked the horrific explosion and inferno that engulfed the plant, a cataclysmic result of an ill-faceted experiment aimed at bolstering reactor safety. Tragically, the reactor's design placed immense responsibility in the operator's hands, leading to this catastrophic cascade of events. The resulting radiation release sent alarms ringing as the Forsmark nuclear power plant in Sweden, over 1,000 kilometers away, underscoring the gravity of the situation. The footage at hand here offers a mere glimpse into the post-explosion desolation. At number 7 is this siren. That's right, a real found footage of a real mermaid, but this ain't Ariel, y'all. This creepy mermaid, or whatever that bizarre aquatic entity is, raises some spine-tingling questions. See, one might have harbored a romanticized notion of meeting a mermaid, but after witnessing this unsettling footage from 2018, it's safe to say that those dreams have sailed. In the footage, we find ourselves at a mysterious dock, confronted by a creature that defies description. Its mermaid-like tail hints at a connection to folklore, yet its overall overall appearance is far from human. Perhaps the creature sensed the camera's graze and hastily retreated into the depths, leaving us all with unanswered inquiries. Is this truly a mermaid, or does it belong to some hidden corner of marine biology? The most perplexing aspect is the deafening silence from official channels. If such enigmatic being actually roams our oceans, then why the silence from the powers that be? The absence of the information about these underwater oddities leaves us pondering about how many other eerie secrets lurk beneath the waves.
Es una mujer. Es una mujer tan guapa y... Cabeza. Me está llamando. Voy.
Hey.
No.
Dame la cámara.
¿Viste eso? ¿Viste la mujer que estaba ahí?
Sí. No me grabes, dame la cámara.
Se fue.
At number 6. Demon chair. It's not your typical comfy couch or soothing rocking chair, but rather a chilling encounter with the unexplained. In this unsettling footage, a seemingly innocuous used chair takes on a life of its own. Its owner must have been blissfully unaware of what was about to unfold, because as we watch this video, we see what looks like my grandmother's rocking chair that appears to move on its own, a cozy addition to the home or a gateway to the supernatural. While we can't definitively confirm the authenticity of this video, one thing remains clear. This haunting found footage tape continues to captivate our imaginations and make us question the boundary between the mundane and the paranormal. At number 5 is Hell House LLC. If you're a fan of horror and found footage, you might have heard of the infamous Abaddon Hotel in Rockland County, New York. This place has a sinister history that's the stuff of nightmares. In a chilling documentary, the crew investigates a mysterious accident that took the lives of 15 people, including the Hell House company staff and their first group of attendees. The crew's pursuit of answers leads them to Sarah Havel, the sole survivor from the Hell House team. Her footage unveils a series of unexpected events hinting at the hotel's connection to a satanic cult, but things actually are about to get a lot more twisted from here. After watching the eerie tapes, Michael, a crew member, decides to contact Diane, the producer. However, he stumbles upon something too horrifying to describe. When Diane and her cameraman break into the Abaddon Hotel, they discovered a room level 2C where they believe Sarah was supposed to be staying, but there's no escaping the malevolent forces from within. Sarah, the person they've been speaking to this entire time, is no more than a mere ghostly apparition, and there was never any survivors to begin with. As they realize the truth, the camera captures their terrifying demise, leaving you to question the boundaries of reality and the supernatural. Watch this at your peril, but be prepared for sleepless nights. At number 4 is the horror in the high desert. This is the unsolved mystery of Gary Hinge, the amateur hiker who ventured into the heart of the Great Basin Desert, only to disappear without a trace. It all began in July of 2017 when Gary set out from the town of Ruth, Nevada on a solo expedition to a cabin he'd previously encountered. Days turned into weeks, and as his housemate Simon Rogers grew increasingly concerned, the police were called in. A massive search operation ensued, but it turned up nothing, as Gary's truck was discovered 55 miles from Ruth. But here's where it gets bizarre. The truck was teeming with fingerprints that didn't belong to Gary, and barefoot fingerprints led away from it, not matching his own. And then the investigation took a digital turn. Gary was a YouTube vlogger known as Scorpion Sam with a sizable following. His last video recounted a strange encounter near the cabin, but it was met with skepticism. Weeks later, hikers stumbled upon Gary's backpack containing a gruesome find: his severed hand clutching a video camera. Analysts revealed that the hand had been severed while he was alive no more than 5 weeks earlier. The camera unveiled the truth. At number 3 is Lake Mungo. This documentary starts about a family grappling with the loss of their teenage daughter who drowned. There's no gore, no creepy creatures, just a sense of unease. The slow burn of this film works like a psychological vice, tightening with each revelation. If you watch in a dark room right before bed, the atmosphere becomes oppressive. You're drawn into the web of grief and the unknown, and then it happens. An image so unexpected and terrifying that it's seared into your memory. Lake Mungo proves that the most chilling horrors aren't supernatural entities, but the depths of human emotion. And don't be surprised if you lose some sleep. At number 2 is The Last Broadcast. Before The Blair Witch, we had The Last Broadcast, and this obscure mockumentary takes us on a spine-tingling journey into the dark depths of the New Jersey Pine Barrens, where a group of filmmakers met a gruesome fate while documenting the Jersey Devil. The film's vintage aesthetic doesn't just add an old school charm, it enhances the realism, immersing you in the horrifying tale. As it unfolds, reality and fiction seamlessly merge, leaving you questioning what's real, and the result is a vital indie film, one that leaves a haunting mark. When the chilling reveal comes, it's a punch to the gut. The last broadcast isn't just for the faint of heart, but if you dare to watch, prepare for a cursed experience like no other. Man-Eater Tragedy. Released in 1980, it's a notorious film credited with pioneering the found footage horror genre. The exploitation classic follows an American documentary crew whose cruelty towards a native Amazon tribe results in their gruesome end. It's infamous for its disturbing, realistic, unaliving scenes and its relentless brutality. The film's shocking portrayal of violence and the eerie ethics of filmmaking has sparked debates and controversies for decades. While it's considered a transgressive masterpiece, it's not for the faint of heart, and watching it may leave you with images you cannot erase. I am serious, you guys.